I'm very excited about the M2 Pro coming into the Mac Mini because it's just affordable power for the majority of Apple users out there. So YouTube, today, Tim Apple and the crew over at Apple just dropped some heat. So basically, we just got the brand new M2 and M2 Max, MacBook Pro 14-inch and 16-inch, as well as the M2 Mac Mini, and drum roll please, the M2 Pro Mac Mini. You heard that right, an M2 Pro inside of a Mac Mini, basically at a bargain, at an ideal price point. We're gonna get into all of it. Let's break it down. Let's get into the website. And really, is the M2 Pro and the M2 Max on the 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro architecture an upgrade? Something worth actually going out and spending more money on? Or for those of you who are just now looking for your first MacBook Pro, should you try to go M1 Pro, M1 Max and save a couple bucks? Or is what Apple gave us or upgraded in the M2 Pro and M2 Max worth it? Let's get into some of the details and break it down up next. As you can see on the front of their website, smack dab in center, we got the MacBook Pro announcement as well as the Mac Mini. Now, if we get into the MacBook Pro, as you guys can see, what has changed is in the chipset. It's more efficient and more powerful. Let's just be real. But how much more powerful and how much more efficient? The M2 Pro, up to 12 core CPU, up to a 19 core GPU, up to 32 gigabytes of unified memory, and a 200 gigabyte memory bandwidth. Pretty nice, especially with the M2 Max coming in at a 12 core CPU and up to 38 core GPU and up to 96 gigabytes of RAM. That's pretty impressive. I'm not even gonna lie. 400 gigabyte memory bandwidth. This is looking pretty sweet, especially if this is your first version of the MacBook Pro. This is extremely exciting because you're getting better than what we got. Us M1 Pro and M1 Max owners, you're getting better than what we have. All right, let's get straight into the nitty gritty. First, we'll look at the 14-inch, then we'll take a look at the 16-inch. Now, as you guys can see, the changes in the chipset is just 2 cores. So from 10 cores to 12 cores, not nothing crazy or massive, but it's going to make a difference. How big of a difference? We'll find out. From 32 core GPU up to a 38 core. So, 6 more cores. All right, let's see. Now, this is cool. The idea that you can get up to 96 gigabytes of RAM. Now, that's for like some really taxing high-end, operations and, get downs. But as you guys saw, even me on my 64 gigabyte model of the M1 Max, I was using 50 gigs of RAM in the way that I have my machine set up. So I can see that there's probably someone out there, some nut, crazier than me, that's actually needing 96 gigabytes. But it's just cool to have headroom if you need it. Now, up to 8 terabyte storage, nothing has changed there. Now, in the battery life, this is a place where all the rumors and all the talk, Apple's little announcement and things like that, you got to think about it like this. They're always going to say more efficient and things like that. Now, that's the good thing about the updated chip. It's always going to be, new and improved, a little bit more efficient and a little bit more powerful. Now, when it comes to efficiency, as you can see, up to 17 hours of battery on last year's, model versus up to 18 hours of battery life. So about an hour of improvement, give or take. But let's jump really quick into the 16-inch because in the 16-inch, when we roll down there, it's the same. Now, these are all approximates. Nothing's like definitive. When we get the devices in, we'll do some comparison, and I've gave you guys real-life updates with the models in hand. Okay, so right here, you guys get to see a model of it broken down a little bit deeper. So like the 18 hours on the 14-inch was video playback, and then there's up to 12 hours of web browsing. The 16-inch model, which will give you up to 22 hours of video playback and up to 15 hours of web browsing. Is it worth an upgrade? I'm gonna be honest, as someone who owns the M1 Max currently right now, and I have my M1 Max and I'm doing all that I've done, and I literally just did a video updating you guys after having it for more than a year and telling you guys my honest thoughts. Check that video out if you haven't. I love this M1 Max machine, and I'm not feeling like super implied to, I got to get the M2 Max and upgrade my machine. It would be nice because there's some more capabilities in the area of video editing and rendering and things like that. It's going to possibly do that better. I would have to, when we get them in hand, we'll test it and things like that. Nevertheless, there is potential for it to be improved because this is the latest, there's been more time and effort into this, so it should be better. It better be better than the previous model. But I don't know if it's by that much to where I'm just like, I just had to configure the latest M2 Max and order that. So my perspective for my content that I'm going to be bringing to you guys is more like the base models, because I know a lot of people like to look at those because those are the more affordable and things like that. Yeah, that's pretty much what we doing. Now, let's talk about what's even more exciting for me, the M2 Mini, baby. Let's get into it. All right, the M2 Mac Mini. Now, the Mac Mini is a favorite to a lot. I have a Mac Mini. I enjoy it. It's so small, so compact, yet so powerful. I got the M1. We will be getting the M2 base model versus the M1 base model. We're going to put them head to head, and you guys are going to find out what type of improvements and if it's worth it. The one thing that I love about the Mac Mini in comparison to all these other Apple computers is the price point, baby. The cost of entry into the Mac Mini world is so refreshing in comparison to the, MacBook Pro world and all of the more expensive Macs. $599. Cost of entry, it starts at $599 and you're in the latest chipset, the M2 chipset on the Mac Mini, and it's a dedicated desktop setup and it's powerful and it performs. You guys will see. Now, you do have the option of putting the M2 Pro this year. Now, I want to show you there's some differences between just the M2 version and the M2 Pro. And that comes in I/O, ports. If you look right here, the M2, no different than all of the previous M1 and Mac Minis and things like that. Yeah, that's wild. Now, we get into the M2 Pro, and now we have 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports instead of just only having 2. This is more in line and closer to like that Mac Studio-ish type of setup, because the Mac Studio, you get 4 Thunderbolts on the back. You get a lot more, I think, USB A's on the back than this. I think it might be 2 more than that. And you get the 2 on the front, which is, come on, man. You get the SD card reader. We're talking Mac Studio. But the Mac Studio isn't too far off, because the M2 Pro, we're going to look at pricing and we'll do a comparison and things like that. See, $1299 is the starting price point of the M2 Pro. Now, if you select that, hey, I want 32 gigabytes of RAM, let's say. Oh, that's extra $400. That's $1699, right? 512 SSD storage. I wouldn't personally want that. I would want to upgrade that. Minimum 1 terabyte, but I would like more than that. But at that point right there, I'm at $1899. Now, if I go to the Mac Studio, right, and I'm going to buy one of these bad boys, which is starting off with the beloved M1 Max. Do not sleep on the M1 Max. This thing comes with the M1 Max at $199, starting off with 32 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 SSD, which is kind of like, that's gonna hurt. So I would have to get that to at least 1 terabyte. So $2199 versus my Mac Mini build version, which, let's be real, I probably would want more GPU cores, because on the Mac Studio, what am I getting? I'm getting 24 GPU cores. This one I'm only getting 16. Man, listen, the Mac Studio is looking like a real deal in comparison to, like, if you were trying to level up the M2 Pro. Just something to think about, you guys. But from the perspective of just the base setup of the Mac Mini in the M2 Pro configuration at that $1299 price point, that's a pretty ideal price point to get in. Like, say if I'm like, sub pro content creator or creative, whatever, and I'm like, that price of entry is ideal to me. I already got a monitor or whatever, or I'm going to pair it with the studio display. But once you do that, we talking pricing going up. That's just, the ladder is easy to climb in the Apple world, and you end up walking out with a lighter wallet than you intended to. It just goes that way. But I'm very excited about the M2 Pro coming into the Mac Mini, because it's just affordable power for the majority of Apple users out there. So, looking at that from a positive note, Tim, I see you out there, player. I appreciate it a lot. So, what did I get? If you guys care, you guys want to know what's coming on the channel, I'm going to tell you guys. I got a M2 base model for my people who just want to see what can $599 get them. I got you. I have the M2 Pro in this base form at $1299, and I'm going to be able to compare them like the M1 to the M2. We'll be able to do direct comparison. We will be testing a 14-inch base and a 16-inch base and putting those head to head. What size and all that stuff. I got a lot of content coming y'all way. I did it last year, or the year before last, quote unquote, last model. I got you guys. Like, I'm going to let you guys know the deets about these chips, but is it worth it? Is the improvements over here in the M2 that much better and so forth? So I got you guys. So you already know what to do, baby. Hit the subscribe button and come back for the next video. My name is CJ. This is CJ Knows Tech. Yes, I changed the name. If all my OG subscribers know the name, it's how I started.